Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever on this wonderful Sunday, the 6th of July, 2025. We're on Bongversations episode number 38 with the wonderful
38.
Dave J on YouTube. 38 is 3 and 8's 11.
Yeah.
It's 3 8's
Well, yeah, 3 plus 8 plus 3 is 11,
6.
and 8 is 24, 6. Boom. Present.
6, boom.
It's the present offering or the time spent. It's the box which will contain either the truth or the lie, to be discerned by the one who observes it. And so,
well, let's just go into this wonderful world of numbers with Dave J.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dave. It's another wonderful Bongversations to awaken people with your knowledge. So shoot. And shoot
for sure.
Interesting to say shoot, because you're going to bring cult up. A cult. Soon,
a cult.
There you go.
Yeah, so I was taking a lead from a guy who goes by Farce Value, and he talked about the Masonic influence in sports or across sports, but in baseball in particular. And I wanted to go into that to get into what we're talking about today, which is the 38. So first, if you want to look at numbers, because it's important that all these other little details, whether it be movie, TV, or sports, or anything that's just details of man's action, it's just it's ornament. So if you want to just look at the 38, just write down 38 on a piece of paper, and then to the right you just put the addition, which is 8 plus 3 is 11. To the left you put the minus, which is 3 from 8, which is going to be 5. So now all of a sudden, we've only looked at 2. So now you have the 3, the 8, the 5, and the 11, which is also 2. Then guess what? You also have the 3 8s, which is 8. You have 8, 16, 24. Now 24 added is not only 6, but in if you think of 24, it's a cycle or it's a rotation. It's from one spot all the way around back to the other spot. 360 degrees all the way around. Boom. Or the passing of time. So we were talking about the idea of time or chronos. Now, also 38. Remember we talked several episodes ago about the hoax Egyptian mythology shows the scarab beetle. And I talked to you about the scarab beetle being more camouflage for a message. A series of either letters or sigils that are stacked on each other. So if you, and to show you how this works, if you take 38 and just look at it in your mind, just move the 3 over the 8, and you'll see that it disappears into it. Right.
Yep.
And then you can split that 8 right in the center and you get your 33. So nothing went anywhere. It's just, it was a matter of just being hidden in plain sight. So now that you have all those numbers written down, and I'm not even going to go into the division side. That's when you really want to get nerdy with kind of the details. But just stay on the positives or the plus, minus, and of course then just the times the 8. So then I was looking into how this relates to baseball, and with baseball in particular. Baseball is nothing more than if you're an observer behind home plate, and you're from Australia, so you might be familiar, sort of, with the game. So I'll give you a little bit of a background.
I played softball and baseball. Yep.
Okay, so if you're an observer, you're not a player of the game. You're an observer from behind home plate. You're going to have 9 players, okay, that are representative of the team that's on the field. And then the 10th, or the IO, the input-output of the game, is going to be the batter of the opposite team. So now then to show you this is nothing more than, it's really just a Masonic, what's called a storyboard or a tracing board, played out. So you have the borders of Joachim and Boaz, the so-called pillars. You have Boaz, the pillar of severity. You have Joachim, the pillar of mercy. That would be your out of bounds markers in the outfield. And then between that, space, you have 9 positions. So you have the pitcher and the catcher, which are going to be your front line. The pitcher is delivering the ball to the catcher over the plate in hopes that it fits within the so-called strike zone, and that the batter, the input-output character in this, swings and either misses or fouls it out a couple times, and then finally or tips it into the glove of one of the players without knocking it out of, over the fence. So that's kind of what their job is. So, but you also just look at PC, Rick. So you have PC. Think of it, because I always talk about computers and think about the demon idea, but PC is a personal computer. It's a PC. It's what people call a computer, is they call it their PC. Now,
Yep.
remembering in computing, a demon or a daemon, if you say DAEMON, that's
Same thing.
yeah, it's like the invisible operator. It's the autonomous kind of launch up code. It's the continuous sweeping. So it's your mind going even when you would consider yourself disengaged or relaxing. There's demons still running through there if you have not cleared your mind, and if you do not possess the mind of Christ. If you somehow still have a worldly mind. So the pitcher and the catcher then play with you. The PC is where that interaction happens. Now,
Sorry. I'm getting where you're going here. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pitcher,
Okay.
catcher,
Yep.
catcher. Yeah.
Pitcher, catcher, and the interaction is the swinger, the batter. Now the batter has an opportunity to hit the ball into play and to make a play and to try and get, if at all possible, back home. Their entire goal is to get right back where they started from. All right. The entire goal of them standing up there is to get right back where they started from. So that should show you then the cyclical nature of the game, or the 24, in this case, the 888, the idea of the cycle. Now, remember, if this pitcher is going to throw to the catcher, and the pitcher and the catcher are going to use a series of hand signs to try to deceive.
Interesting when you look at some of those hand signs.
Yeah.
It's a 666, isn't it?
Yeah. And it could be anything. Yeah. So it's all so it's just the fact and the nature that even in front of you in this game, that hand signs and deception are being used to try to get a better or to get the leg up on the input. They're trying to control the input and output, which is they want a different result than you do if you're the batter. Now the batter is going to try and knock the ball into play. Now there's a certain opportunity. Here's where numbers come back into it. Let's say, for an example, that they don't hit a foul ball whatsoever. There's no added, extra little rules. There's something called a full count, to where they have a certain number of balls and a certain number of strikes, and the very next pitch will determine whether they walk away out or they walk to the first base free without doing any work on their own. It's called a full count.
Yeah.
So then you can see then that this is really just a game of switching as well. And so their goal is to get, and guess what? The first base is the only base that the opposing team doesn't actually have to touch you or engage with you to get you out if there's no pressure. They just touch what's called the bag. You never made it to the first bag. They touch it, boom, you're out. The next bags, the second bag and the third bag, if you are not forced from behind and you have a retreat, then they have to actually physically touch you and not the bag, because you always have an escape option. Do you see? That's important, because it's called chasing the bag for a reason. Chasing the bag in the vernacular of the street is chasing the money. You're chasing the bag. You're chasing the bag. The currency. Yeah. So in order to win,
the cycle of life we've been forced into, this constant chasing the money. Yeah.
Yeah. So in order to win, you have to eat at the plate, which is home place. You have to eat, which is making a play. You have to then collect 3 bags, and you have to come back home, all safe without getting touched. That's the whole point of the game. And the more times that each team does that, the higher number wins. That's how baseball is won and lost. But you can see. Go ahead.
So, oh, no, I was going to say that the man that they said, apparently it's not true, but the guy that's claimed to be the creator of the game was the head of Theosophy, the Theosophical Society, for a number of years while Madame Blavatsky was off doing something else. So Theosophy rings in big time with the baseball, the whole thing of
Well,
baseball.
that's all Mason. It's all the
Same
same
thing, yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
It's all
right,
the same
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Okay,
So there's no doubt about that. So then you also have distance between bases, the like the pitching rubber to the home plate. So like for example, the distance between bases is 90 feet. That's your 90. All right. Then the pitching
never
rubber
mind.
to home is 60 feet and 6 inches. Exactly. It's very specific.
66.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And here,
very Masonic with the
and then
66.
guess what you have? Yeah. So you have 6 + 6 is 12, which is 3. So within the distance between the bases and the rubber to home, you have your 3, 6, and 9 hidden right in plain
Yeah,
sight. So then
yeah.
also the pitcher's mound. So now this is where the ball, the energy, the point of focus. Everyone is focused on the ball. The ball is where it all happens. This ball is then pitched into play from a mound which is sitting 10 inches higher than the home plate level.
Yeah.
10.
10.
That's
So the
important
X,
because
that's
we
your
talked
1
about,
plus
yeah,
O. 1 plus O
it's
plus 1.
also the input output. It's
Yeah,
the
input output.
opposite. It's the opposite to the batter, who's the input output. You see how it's
Very
the correct
interesting stuff.
balance. Yeah,
Very interesting
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So it's really, you're just watching a mathematical equation play out, and you're watching also a Masonic tracing board play out. And I'll put this kind of in the video form of
Is this squaring the circle? Squaring the
Yeah.
circle as well? Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because it's a diamond, which is nothing more than kind of an oblong square, and you are wrapping
You have to
around.
run around.
Yeah, you have to run around in a circle. And
Yeah.
also just know that diamond, for example, equals 60 in simple gematria. And guess what? Diamond also is what equals orange. Orange man bad. The idea of 33 orange. It also it also equals, and this is quite interesting. It equals word. Word
Oh,
is
interesting.
word is that think of the word as the baseball coming to the batter. The batter's either going to take it, hit it into play, or walk away from it. Those are the only two options. And then guess what? Just to kind of put a point on that, the 60 in simple gematria is also believe. All right. It's also so then all these different, and it's also teacher.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's also quite interesting, pure. So the idea of pure or holy.
Yeah.
However, it's also police and kraken. So
Real.
So you can see, depending on the intent, that there's the
Gotcha.
positive and the negative use.
And
Right?
and just remember Baal and Ball.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
there for sure.
Oh, for sure. And now, so if now it's kind of, that's we've kind of beat the baseball thing too. That's a dead horse now. So let's just move on to 38 kind of across other ways. So you
38
have,
special.
yeah, well, 38 special. You have the weapon, the 38 special. It's a Colt, and then you have a Colt, and you were mentioning that when I sent you that picture. A Colt,
Yeah.
like a Colt or
A cult
a
and
Colt.
occult.
A Colt, yeah, and
A cult, occult, a cult. Yeah, there's three different things in that same
yeah,
as your. I have to quote you again. If AJ
yeah,
says, if it sounds like it is it. If
it
it
is it,
sounds like
yeah.
it is it. Yeah.
Speaking of which, within the action of the Colt revolver, you have the trigger. Now, most would know the trigger, but then inside the action, the trigger rides along. Well, it swivels on a bolt, but it rides along what's called a sear. SEAR. That's nothing more than the S in front of ear. So think of 19 or the
An
metonic
air.
cycle.
Yep.
Ear, hearing. So you hear it. So your trigger is this input. All right. It rides
Yep.
along the sear, the ear, and guess what? It then engages the DA fly. DA fly, da fly, just like Dalet or the door.
Dalet. Yeah.
Yeah, the DA fly. Now remember, the fly has been made a few times in movies and to where when the scientist character was trying to uh, uh, move or transfer himself physically from one place to the other through
Great
really the
movie.
ether,
Great movie.
that he became the image crossed with that of a fly.
Yeah.
Right. So then the fly is also da let, or the mind lets in. So then if that ball that you're swinging at is a fly and you become entangled with it, you become the fly. The fly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The
So
Fly.
the fly is what pushes the hammer back, and of course the hammer, when dropped, is what sends the bullet or the idea into your mind, into your brain. So this is the idea then of every time you're coming into contact with these ideas, it's no one's fault but your own for it to be injected into your head, meaning that you have to pull that trigger. It's got to go through your seer, through your making you the fly, who then drops his own hammer. That's what the parts of the pistol are called.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So then, looking at also, if you want to look at the 9 positions on the field, and this is just strictly the 9 positions of baseball, it is an exact overlay of the 9 positions on the so-called tree of life for Kabbalah, because you have, of course, 1 through 9, and then the 10, or the IO, being what's called the kingdom. That is it's the, in this case, the pitcher and the reflecting against the batter. That's the 10-10 interchange. It's 1 input and 1 output, and they're both looking for a different result.
Yeah,
Do you see?
and interesting that pitcher, you have the jug carrying the water.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's a there with that as
Well,
well.
it's offering. Well, it offers you the pill.
Exactly.
It offers you the pill. That's what the whole game's about. It's offering you a pill, and it's doing its best to try to make it hard for you to hit it. But at no point can it fall within the strike zone, or tend towards what's called perfect, unless it plays within a box called the strike zone. See, so there is quite simply the containment of chaos, or containment of energy. So if you can convince, or if you can fool somebody within this box to where they swing and they miss, or they don't swing at all, you're going to get a point. However, outside of that, if you're going to try to get them to swing at it, you're going to have to put a curve, or a slide, or maybe even a knuckle to where it doesn't move much. You're going to throw that in, and even if it drops out of the strike zone, if they so happen to, on their own accord, try to swing at it and miss, well, that's as good. A wink's as good as a nod to a blind mule. So you're good there too, right? So it's really so then that's the interchange between the game, and that's the Masonic so-called journey.
All these years where because this is a big, we're talking about a massive game, particularly in America, Japan, South America, and some
South
places.
America for sure.
It is an incredible game. So you're watching a game, but you're actually watching deep level metaphysical cult.
Well, you're watching, each time you're watching a hero's journey. Each time the next batter comes up.
Exactly, a hero's journey, 100%.
Yeah, each time. And so then if you look at this, and this will bring into, let's say, John 5. If you go to John 5, if you go to verse, let's say, verse 5, 5, which is the balance. Check this out. And there was a certain man was there which had an infirmity 38 years. Speaking of 38.
Fantastic.
Now then, let's continue with what does this infirmity mean? All right. So now he has an infirmity, and so he says, when Jesus saw him lie. Now think of this 2 different ways. Think of this kind of as the story's telling you, where's this guy is lying by the pool, and he's decrepit and he can't move. So but also think of it now just in the general spiritual sense. When Jesus saw him lie, L-I-E, meaning not tell the truth, and knew that he had been now a long time in the case, he said unto him, wilt thou be made whole? Meaning, do you want to be made whole? Or do you just want to lie there? And the impotent man, now here's the thing about impotent, the word impotent used. Today it might be like weak or feeble or, powerless, sick, ill, that kind of thing, or infirmed. However, if you think of impotent in the procreation way or the occult fashion, which is always male, female, impotent meaning is you can't get it up.
Yeah.
You're a man in name only, sport. They're like, well, surely, I'm physically a man, so I'm still therefore a man. And I'm like, no, you're not. And so then and so the impotent man answered him, sir, I have no man. And the reason he says I have no man, he's speaking like a servant, that he has no servant to help him. But I look at this as more of the spiritual side. So he's this man, this helpless character, this huddled mass is one who I call a spiritual homosexual, meaning that they're looking for a man, like a physical man, a book, some tablet to save them. All right. So he says, sir, I have no man, and when the water is troubled, think of the world when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool, but while I am coming, another steppeth down before me, meaning somebody beats him to it. So he's always there last. And you know what Jesus says? He said, instead of saying, oh, don't worry about this, and he simply says, get up, take your bed, and walk.
Walk, yeah. Sounds like a baseball game.
And then he gets up and he walks. That's it.
Yep.
It's like stop pretending that you don't know what you're doing. Stop
get up,
saying,
take your bed and walk.
Yeah.
Simple.
Stop saying you don't know, because then you've just convinced yourself you don't know. It's like you've told yourself that. And what's interesting about I don't know is that in simple gematria, it's 125, which is 8. And remember, 8 with the 38, if you push the 3 over the 8, is 8. It's what you eat. It's what you consume. It's also the cycle you consume. It's that hero's journey that you went on.
Interesting you mentioned impotency. Impotency and I don't know go together, because the biblical form of knowing a woman is actually having sex with a woman. So I don't know also means I'm impotent.
Correct. Yeah. And it's also, what's interesting about 125 is that as far as other words, transgender.
Yep.
Is 125. Transgender is important because that goes back to the spiritual homosexual idea I told you about, and them not knowing, and of course always being on the fence, or the bird on the fence. It's also light to dark or dark to light, meaning it's that choice being made. It's also 7-4, or what if you write 7 4s down, or 4 7s, you're going to be creating a swastika, or the idea of the sun sign, or the idea of the light that one is following. The HH, the Heil Hitler, the 88, the 16-7. Remember, if we're talking 38s here, 3 8s. If you take an H in your mind, a capital H, and you stack a second H on top of it, and then a third H, you've created a ladder.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic.
So then if you're looking at then the ladder, and then where does that ladder lead, you look at the power behind the numbers. And now in this particular case, and story and lore and books like the Lesser Seal of Solomon and other so-called magic book, other so-called magic books, they'll take what I'm about to tell you and they'll try to give you a story, but it's all about one in the end. And we talked about that when I talked to you about The Exorcist, when the young priest went to the old priest and he says that the demons, and that was Pazuzu at the time, is manifesting as these certain thing, and the old guy Marin says, no, it is only one. And the way I was thinking about how to say this, and I was going to say, Rick, if I gave you a mirror and you dropped the mirror in front of you and it broke into exactly 72 pieces, that's then what I'm going to now talk to you about. So that would be the so-called 72 virgins the Muslims think they're going to get. Those are actually demons. It's
Yeah.
the 72 spirits spoken about in the King Solomon Lesser Key. It's also
That's the
all
key.
this the same that are talked about in Thelema, the
Selena.
Crowley, all of it. This is all the same. These are all the same characters. Now the
Yeah.
38th power, which it ties in with one called Malthus, and
Malthus.
Malthus and its disciples are called disciples of Ram. All right, disciples of Ram, and it's shown as a ram's head. So think of like a ram truck, or also a
Yep.
ram, and also as a bird's head or a bird brain. So think of that. If you were to run into these characters, they're ram-headed, meaning they're bullish. They're bull-headed, ram-headish, meaning they're arrogant, but they're also bird-headed, meaning that they're like bird brains. They're jocks. They're bird
And
brains.
very Egyptian. That's the
Yeah.
Egyptian. One of the hieroglyphs is the bird-headed
Yeah,
person.
it's shown as that for sure, Rick. It's shown across
Yep.
all these whether it be Babylon, any of them that show you this character with a bird's head or a raven, or even any movie that's referencing the crow. Any of these are actually representing Malthus, and how Malthus is this power that, because really it's like the mirror that's broken 72 times. So you
Yeah.
picked up the 38th piece, and now you're looking at the 38th piece, and if it was all one body again, what did this one body do? All right, or this one part of the body do? And that's why they're given names, but this particular part of the Antichrist body, for lack of a better term, the 72, it creates towns. Quite simply, it's
Talons.
towns. No, towns. Like you live in towns.
Towns. Sorry.
Towns.
Sorry.
Yeah, towns. Like small towns. That's why across the United States, you have a lot of small towns, and each town will have when you come into the town, this wall of all the different groups that are running it, and they're all Mason
The
groups and
Lions,
elks
the
and all
Mason,
that.
the Lions, the
Mm-hmm.
Masons, the JCs. There's another one called
Yeah.
JCs. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
Interesting. Very interesting.
Malthus is the spirit behind that um, intention or need in people to do that. So then also, guess what it does? It also is fully the power behind enforcement of law, which is
Interesting.
why your towns are built around police departments for the most part, or sheriff departments
Yeah. And
for
they
the
have
most part.
the star, and they
Yeah.
have the Masonic checkerboard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So they all fall within this power. Now, in the movie sense, let's say, because each one of these powers, we've talked about this before, to where these powers are shown in movie form, for to
Dairy,
kind of
dairy, dairy
well,
being one.
well, yeah, well, to kind of hide the intent of the different powers, to confuse people, because if you watch a scary movie, they give you a bunch of scenes that are kind of just throwaway. They don't mean anything, but usually the scene where they either have the professor, or the scene with the priest, or the scene with the demon itself talking, those scenes right there are usually going to be the ones where they're actually giving you the lore, or whatever the story is, that goes back to something that can be traced to the storybook or the storyboard that the so-called characters run this place use. And now Malthus goes back to Annabelle. Now, if you look at the Annabelle movies, that particular demon that possesses Annabelle as a doll, and even Chucky, is going to be Malthus.
Interesting.
Anytime you have a movie that is using a doll as a possessed entity,
Yep.
it's going to be
And there's lots of them, and
yeah.
there's lots of
And,
them.
yeah, so
Yep.
that's a manifestation of Malthus, because
Interesting.
within so-called possession, you have really three, and of course we talked about three. You have three steps. You have the infestation, which, now think of this as an idea. The infestation is the input. infestation, meaning that someone has been, they let themselves into a position to hear something. They turned on their TV, they opened the newspaper, they read something. That's the infestation. That's the pitch. All right. The oppression is the deception in between the pitcher and the catcher. All right. Now, what happens next is with the second stage of oppression is that those ideas now start to play on the mind of the one who received it, the one who believes these different stories, whether it be hoaxes, blah, blah, blah. They believe these stories. So then that actual idea starts to physically oppress them. And they start to get physical manifestations of this oppression in their so-called real life. Body aches, XYZ thoughts of this and that and the other thing. Now, the third and final is full out possession. And now when you have full out possession, that's the last step. That's when, and if someone was possessed and I was to present to them the truth of the matter, they would lose it. They'd flip out. They'd wig out. Because because at some point at possession, they can no longer accept the truth. It becomes a violent sound to them. You can still talk to them in depression and the infestation phase, which is why if you teach people how to fish, which is how to use the 7 code, which is why it's called a Sandy hoax, a Sandy hook. If you can teach people how to do that, they never get to the second part because they see it at the infestation part. They see it at the first step and they delete it. They never get to oppression. They never get to possession. Once you get to possession, you have to the point to where you're going to be driven to your absolute end. And guess what? You have to repent at the end, which is repent. A serpent repents. I've said this before, and it's important that people know this. A serpent, if you write those 7 letters, serpent, repents is 7 letters as well. The same 7 letters, a different intent. Meaning you simply changed your mind, Rick. Yep. You just simply change your mind. You stopped false witnessing death, because at the end of your when it's curtain call, that's it, because the show doesn't go on. You're either going to continue into life, which is the mind of Christ, or you're going to dissipate. Period. Jacob's ladder, which is also how a baseball field, in fact, if you look at it from home plate, it's shaped like Jacob's ladder. How it goes out from the diamond or from home plate, it goes out to the outfield at an angle, which allows the outfield to fan out, to look like an opening fan.
So it dissipates.
Yeah. Yep. So
Fantastic.
then, and so any thoughts on that? I was thinking I was running my mouth for a while.
No. Well, I'd rather just listen, because you're nailing some really important things. Because the game of baseball and same with even football, the American, the gridiron and things like that, they all have very. They're not just put there for you to keep the masses stupid. They do that as well.
Right.
But as they're being kept stupid, they're actually watching truth being played out. The wide receiver and we talk about wide receivers and radio
tight
talk.
ends and all kinds of they have these guys running around in tights.
Yeah,
like the dudes running around in tights.
Yeah, it's very effeminate. No
men
matter what
tights.
Anyone thinks, it's men in tights.
Yeah, men in
tights, Mennonites, and men in tights.
Men in tights.
Yeah.
I was just jumped in my head. Speaking about that is the 38 is also the Ishihara test, the so-called colorblind test, to where you have the background with the different numbers. It looks like in sand.
Yes.
Well, they go 1 through 38. And what's interesting about the 38th spot is if people are colorblind, they'll see 88. They won't see 38. Because the little on the left-hand side of the 3, they change the color to green. and that's
See,
what will
now,
throw the people off.
interesting about color blindness, because one of my children
Hmm.
suffers from it. Well, I don't
Hmm.
say suffers. I said to him, it actually means you see different things, and he's very aware of stuff. And I think it's not an affliction; it's actually a blessing in some ways. That the color blindness doesn't let them to be swallowed into this whole narrative of colors and tones, and that they actually see differently. And the fact that they see 88, but no one else can,
Right.
but they
I was,
can. So
except for me, I see it too, but because I see it as the 8. Well, we see it as the 8 because you pushed it together earlier and we both saw it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so
38.
so
It
yeah,
just
and then
disappears into itself.
yeah, and you also see the 888. So it's
Yeah,
like once you, so if someone just sees 38, that's pretty boring, man. Expand it, expand it in all directions, and then you'll see all the different connections it makes to that very same thing, and not by coincidence. It's all
no,
by
no, absolutely not.
it's
There's not by coincidence at all.
yeah.
Well,
This
you
is
just
all.
you well you just run down. Pardon the pun, running down. But the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
baseball is there's a whole level, high level of stuff on that diamond
Hmm.
uh, with a
Well, a
picture.
rundown. We should talk about a rundown. A rundown is when a runner gets caught between two bags, and they have to make it to one or the other. And the other players are throwing the ball back and forth trying to tag him because remember they have to tag him. So then it's called a rundown, and you keep trying to close the gap between them until you finally trap them. However, if the guy can properly maneuver, it's a game of cat and mouse. If he can get around to either go back to the first bag he started from or forward to the
Yep,
next,
yep,
he can
yep.
get safe. And then if you overthrow it and get screwy or sloppy, he can get up and run, and he can run all the way home depending on how sloppy you get. So it's
And
you
win the
have
game.
yeah. So you have to always eat, no matter what side of the ball you're on. You have to decide if this once this ball leaves my hand, is it worth the possible result, or what is the safer way to use this? Because once that ball leaves your hand, it's in play, man.
Yeah.
It's no longer in control. It's in play. And so then I was also thinking, oh, what's also interesting about 125 when we talked about that with I don't know. In the opposite side, it's rise and shine. So
Fantastic.
what's said in the morning when you get up, rise and shine. So
Yeah.
if there's on the Kabbalah tree, the one that's really the one that most resembles the diamond, it's not 1, 2, 3. It's actually 6, 7, 8, 9, which is the only really diamond that's on the Kabbalah so-called tree of life with the 22 paths, that type of thing. And that's where you go from your foundation, you go to victory, to beauty, to glory, and then back to your foundation. So then you visit these different, and that's your first base, second base, third base, home. So then those can overlay exactly on top of your so-called Kabbalah tree of life, because then that anything after 6 on that is the material world. 7,
Yeah.
8, 9 is all material world. So that's how that plays out. And then, of course, the only thing reflecting past that is the kingdom, or the main IO, the input output. And you'll notice that even the observer at the game has input and output because they can make noise. And
Yeah.
you can hear input output, and you also hear that noise makes a difference to the players, meaning is that they get pumped up if the crowd's into it, if they're cheering them on, or if they're saying, we want a pitcher, not a belly itcher. If they let them, if they let them get to them, the crowd can also, they can be the 10th player. They can be this external input output that the
Oh, they
players
do. They sit
should.
there
Yeah,
screaming at
yeah,
their TV or screaming in the audience watching the game.
yeah, yeah. So and this Malthus character, it's the one who causes really like police law conflict, or quote unquote war within a community, meaning
Is it
disagreement.
this? Is it the same Malthus, spelt the same way as Thomas Malthus, the
It's
British
close.
politician that, yeah, that says, there's too many people on the planet back in the
I was about to
1700s and
bring that up.
70s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1766 to
1766.
yeah, he was around till 1830 something or other. But
Yep.
so you have Malthus, which is Malthas, and there's a few different ways to spell it. But he spells his name Thomas Robert Malthus, so Malthus, and he was one that said, food
Too
production
many
is
people.
great.
Yep.
Yeah, food production is great, but what happens is it's good for the well-being, but then the population grows too fast. So he's really just he's another version. He's
And we
another
use
version
this
of the
word
same thing.
Malthusian.
Yeah.
Malthusian is a word used to this day, especially amongst conspiracy theorists,
Oh
about
yeah.
Malthusian intent means they
Mm-hmm.
don't want you around. They don't want bright lights and people that are awake. They'd rather just be a drone bee or an ant, just slaving away and falling off your perch and getting eaten by your you know
Yeah.
other insects, basically. But
Yeah.
Malthus and Malthus sounds the very same to me. So, and I know your equation. If it sounds like it, it is it.
It is it. Yeah. So he yeah. So that character, and then so if you want to see any type of thought that any character in the modern day is going to, if they kind of spout the same idea, just read. Just let's just say if you read what's his nuts Malthus, Robert Malthus, the essay on the principle of population, for example,
That's it.
his
Yep.
so-called work. Yeah, then you would know already what the modern man's going to say, because there's nothing new under the sun. They have nothing new
No.
to add. They're just going to take bits and pieces of that and then the other thing and then tell you the same thing over again. So it's all the same demonic lie, quite frankly. This overpopulation, it's all just a lie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I 100% agree, Dave. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what else was I going to tell you? Something else had popped in my head when I was talking, and then
I know
then
it's hard because I have to. If I don't say it, I forget
uh,
it. It's just the
yeah.
way. If I don't say something there and then, it's gone into the ether, whatever. But
Yeah.
I just think 38 is a mystical number for sure, and it's
Yeah.
in your face all the time. And they call it the 38 special snub nose
Mm-hmm.
revolver back, for a good reason. Oh,
Well, you
the
also.
spiral, the spiral of the gun barrel, Dave.
Oh yeah.
You-
And you also have the disconnect, or even today you have this false idea of this dictator slash that can live right next to freedom with the North and South Korea in the 38th parallel. So you have that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you
So
go. I forgot it. That's a
yes.
good one.
Yeah. So you have that same kind of, and also Skywalker is. I wanted to talk about going back to I don't know. Skywalker is 125. Now I think about it, and that goes into him not knowing Darth Vader in the first few books, but also in that first movie, to where he didn't know who Darth Vader was, although he had all the clues on why he should. But that idea, Skywalker, he didn't know. I don't know the 125, the Skywalker,
Fantastic.
and it's also disclosure. Do you notice how that's also then Skywalker doesn't know Skywalker? Then 125 is also disclosure, so he does know. So I don't know and disclosure and Skywalker are all 125.
Luke, I am your father.
Yeah. So you see how so you can look at the same thing, just like serpent repents, and just look at the intent. And I was speaking with Farce again about intent, and he asked me. He said, because I was explaining to him the code of creation through numbers, and he said, well, where does intent factor in? I said, well, that is you. That is the one who is observing all of this. You are the intent. What is your intention when you see a story? to get to the truth of the matter, or just to accept it as it is and live with it and then become
Yep.
part of the problem. So you are the intent. So you have to then you have to manage, just like he's when Jesus talks about the impotent man, he says, get up, take your bed and walk. I'm not going to, I have no spell, that's what I'm going to tell you. And he does it.
And you become the Skywalker.
Yeah, the Skywalker. Rise and shine. Right. Yeah.
Hey, you're doing it again, man.
Yeah.
I hate having to say every episode gets better, but I'm going to be quite honest here that each time we go in there I come in with no knowledge of what you're going to talk about. No, I have zero idea. We do not prepare anything other than maybe 15 minutes before we do a show,
Right.
and you're knocking it out of the park. Just like a baseball
Mm-hmm.
metaphor. There's a baseball metaphor of knocking it out of the
Yeah,
park.
knocking it out of the park, man.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
and
stuff.
what kind of just jumped in my mind talking about was with the Annabelle, and I was trying to think about if we kind of went around and covered the topic enough, and I was thinking about then what then is the point, or what's the purpose of for example, the Annabelle demon infesting children or dolls, which are equivalent to children. Like Chucky's supposed to be a small boy, and Annabelle's supposed to be a small girl. And then you have what's called the fear of baby danger, or baby on board. The baby on board. Remember when the baby on board stickers took
You see, which is
flight?
Bob, Beat Bob.
Mm-hmm. B.O.B. baby. Yep. So yeah, and so then, so that would be 2626. So that's 10. That's an IO. So Bob is an IO. It's an input. It's a false input output.
Wasn't Bob the name of a
If you look,
demon in some horror movie? There was Bob. Oh, I know the one. The David Finch, not Fincher. The huge, big, long series of TV shows about that the girl disappears and dies, and they made it. I don't know how many movies about and TV shows, but I think Bob is a demon name in that. David, why can't I remember the name? It's the name of a little town, and we just talked about little towns.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
What
the Malthus character.
Malthy's character, but
Yeah. You
what's the
have to
name of
think
that?
about that. You have
Well,
to think about that.
he just died, but it was David. Apparently, the director, it's David something or other, and it was about the female. She's anyhow. Look, I'll move on. I'll tell you. You keep talking, and I'll tell you the name of it because it's actually
Yeah,
relevant to the show.
yeah. It'll come to you if we talk about something else. But I think you're talking about
Yeah.
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks. You just
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. But
Well,
the name of one of the demons' names was Bob.
yeah. Well, Twin Peaks is also a 3 sideways. If you just kind of draw Twin Peaks, like two peaks, twins,
Yes, exactly.
and turn it
Yeah.
side M or a 3, or so you're really looking at the same thing. And Twin Peaks also goes back to your sine wave. Quite frankly, it goes back to tones and tunes. I did a video on that on Twin Peaks because it deals with different type of sine waves. You have sawtooth, and when I do destruction tone work through using tone, just sound tone
Yep.
to move items, you have to change the type of wave you use, or the output has to change, and it's quite interesting when you go through that. And the sawtooth, speaking of Twin Peaks, the reason that I went and I used the sawtooth particular for the Twin Peaks experiment was that the saw blade is a big time image used at the beginning of Twin Peaks, because remember, it's a big sawmill. That's like one of the main businesses up there is a sawmill. So a lot of the beginning is showing you those big old saw blades turning. It's very important. It's very important when you're dealing with tones and waves. So if you want to move things, you switch, instead of a square wave, you move it to a saw wave, and you're going to see a difference. And in fact, I'll put a video, I'll put it in the background, and you'll see the difference.
Fantastic.
I have some hash, like smoking hash, on a
Yeah,
almost like
fantastic. Hey,
a,
dude, we
a
haven't talked about what you've
yeah.
been puffing lately for quite a number of episodes, but what are
Yeah.
you puffing away on?
Well, I had some hash earlier actually too.
Fantastic.
So so oh, and what else did I have? I had I had some cactus OG, which is really what
Cactus OG.
they
Sounds
call
good.
it cactus OG. It's really, to me, it smells what used to be called sweet tarts, and what used to be called before that was simply sweet. It has, if you
Mm.
smell the bag, if you smell the bag of sweet tarts candy, and if you smell this bag,
Same
you
thing.
think same thing. It's like you're smelling the same thing. So and the hash on this drum, I made like a drum basically. I stretched a parchment paper across a lamp so that the light would shine up through it, and I made it really tight with a rubber band, and I danced dry hash across it using just sound waves,
Wow.
and showing the difference between and switching between the different types of waves, square and saw, etc., and showing you the different how they move differently and how it moves. It's really a form of cymatics,
It is. I
but
was going to say
yeah,
cymatics.
but this is more
100%.
of a directed. This is a directed cymatic, not moving the actual place where it was, but projecting sound to it. Instead of vibrating the plate that it's on, I was projecting sound to it like a beam. So
How?
it's a
How do you
with
do
a
that?
speaker. With
Okay, cool.
speakers, you triangulate the target with a speaker, with speakers.
Fant-
Yeah, so that's how. All sound moves in waves. So you just triangulate until you can. Just like with light, it's different with sound because you have to focus it by your ear, meaning that you're looking you're adjusting
the
different
perfect balance.
speakers.
You want
Yeah,
you
you're
want the perfect balance. Yeah.
yeah. So you're adjusting speakers so that because they might be slightly manufactured different. So there's a little bit of a adjustments you have to make. But once you get it dialed in pretty close, yeah, then you start moving stuff. You know, just by direction because you're
Do you
vibrating.
think?
You're
Do you
vibrating
think
the.
that
Go ahead.
they've weaponized this? So when you're sitting in your car or you're putting on your some music or whatever, that your brain's getting shifted in different directions by these same vibrations,
Well,
and
of
they're
course.
moving you away from. And I will tell you now that we were just talking about before the Black Sabbath, um, massive big final concert tonight. Full of people,
Uh-huh.
huge big thing. And I'm a fan. I have to say, I'm a fan. But I actually could listen through it and hear the good bits of what I was saying back in the day. I'm talking about the '70s here. But the music of all the bands performed Slayer and the
Oh yeah,
Metallica
yeah.
and etc. Uh, uh, it's great music. But is it shifting your focus from a good thing into a bad thing? I would have to say yes in a lot of cases. It's keeping your creative mind um, focused on a bad era or a bad area
Right.
um, in your mind. And
Well, it has you
so,
repeating stories and really
exactly,
lies and
yeah.
reminiscing, just like with the old Neil Diamond song, "Love on the Rocks." Ain't no
And we just mentioned,
surprise.
yeah, and the fact he used Diamond for his surname, total
Yeah.
pseudonym, guaranteed. We just mentioned baseball and diamonds. There's a there. Love's on the rocks.
Yep. And he goes, "Pour me a drink and I'll tell you some lies."
Yes, hey,
Yeah. See?
fantastic, Dave. You've done
So
it
yeah.
again.
Yeah, so it's all, and remember we talk about lies. We said when Jesus saw him lie. So I like to take all this stuff and because all you can do is apply it to what time is it now? It's at my place. It's
1
1:02
a.m.
a.m. That
1
means
a.m.
that all I can affect at this moment is everything past this time forward. Now it's 1:03. All right, that's it. So then what I can do then, if that's the case, and that is true, if that is true, and you can test this idea yourself, then when I read something, I say, how then can I apply that to today, to right now?
Yeah.
And is there anything I can read in there that not only can I take for myself, but I can offer to others? so that they might be made whole. That's what that's talking about.
Yeah.
Now going back to the baby on board and how, remember, I wanted to kind of cover why that's even used and why it's like this false concern that's put out onto cars so that when you're driving, you see this and
Everywhere.
and you're always like,
And
oh,
RAM, you just mentioned RAM before. RAM is
yeah,
massive all over the
right,
place.
right. Yeah. So you're driving. Normally, you drive like a complete and total asshole. But now that I see a baby on board, I'm like, oh, I'm now going to drive, nice and safe. It's so there's more to it than that. And kind of like if you go back to The Simpsons, and what's interesting is I talked to Farce about this as well a while ago about this baby on board as being the big hit for the B Sharps on The Simpsons. Remember when their singing group, they had the B Sharps
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
were singing on the roof,
That's right.
and their
Yep.
big hit was
Homer's
Baby
band.
on Board. Yeah, their big hit was
Wow,
Baby on
far
Board.
out.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. Right now, see,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
putting all these things into it's all the jigsaw puzzles getting fit in
yeah,
this
yeah,
episode for me.
yeah, yeah. So that happened in the fifth season, and then you had them come back in the ninth season. So then you have them show up at the balance and then show up at the idol, 5 and 9,
Mm,
and then the
mm,
baby
mm, mm,
on
mm.
yeah, and the baby on board is, here's the thing about the baby on board, and it's a Western culture thing to where you have this baby who hasn't earned a single paycheck yet, somehow runs the house. Instead, you have, or comparative to, you have kind of Eastern country philosophy where the old is thought of most highly, the
Which they should
patriarch of
be.
the
I
family.
have to say that.
Yeah,
And I'm going to have
and
to suggest that it should be that's who you
yeah,
listen to.
yeah, yeah. So you have, on this culture, it's completely flipped and opposite. You have the pampering and the babying of all those that have done jack nor shit until
Yep.
they become a so-called adult and you throw
Lisa
them out.
Simpson,
Yeah,
Lisa Simpson is a great example of that.
yeah,
Yep.
uh-huh.
She's
And then
telling
yeah,
everyone. She's
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No, I'm
No,
still
go for
saying
it.
Lisa Simpson. She's the smartest person
Oh
in
yeah.
the household, usually on The Simpsons.
And the thing about it is that they make the characters to where she actually is, at least worldly smart, meaning that someone who still believes all this nonsense. So you can only be as smart as the script given to you. So if you're someone, you can go to the NASA website and learn all the numbers to all the different so-called planets and lights, and you're going to sound real smart, and you're going to, and they might even invite you to a convention, but you still at the end know nothing
Yep.
at all, period.
Yep. I've been to those
Okay.
conventions when I was a bit more stupid back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and I picked up there's a lot of lies being spouted at
Oh yeah.
conventions. Mm. And the word
And
con
before
is
I
in the
leave the
front of that
oh
word.
oh con for sure. And before I forget on the B sharps, and kind of like the point that's hidden is that the B sharp's really just a fake idea. It's just like a hidden C.
Yeah.
It's just a placeholder for a C note. So
Were they kind of modeled like being the Beatles,
yeah,
we're talking
well
about
they had that.
Scarab Beatles.
No, it's the Beatles, the Scarab Beatles, the hidden message within the message. They were on the
Yeah.
rooftop of the bar, so they were given a message from the bar, from the place of spirit.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
singing from the rooftop of the place of spirit, from Moe's Tavern, to be exact. All right.
Exactly. So it was
Yeah.
they were kind of an allegory to the Beatles,
Oh
and
yeah,
the
for sure.
Beatles were named. Beatles were named. They were the Silver Beatles originally, but
Hmm.
that's their name was the Scarab Beetle that you just talked about earlier,
Oh, absolutely.
the very beginning of the
Them,
show. So we've just rounded it up.
yeah, them and Journey. Journey is big on the Beetle, on the Scarab Beetle on their
Oh,
covers.
that's their logo. Their
Yeah.
massive cover of one of their biggest albums is the Scarab Beetle.
But that's the thing.
Yep.
That's not really. That's not like, hey man, I really love Beatles. That's an homage to their source, to
Yep.
the one who gives them their sustenance.
Yeah,
Without
the
that
dung
power,
beetle.
Yeah,
The
without
dung
that
beetle.
dung, dung, dung. Yeah, yeah. So without the and it is and so without that power in their so-called life, they have nothing. And that's why they
No.
do what they do, and that's why they sing that same song for the rest of their life.
Yep, like
And
Black
that's
Sabbath.
yeah, all of them. They're old Rolling Bones up there, because there's nothing else they can do. There's they.
That's all they can do.
That's all they can do is they're puppets being puppeteered.
Yep,
So we
and
covered quite a
guaranteed
bit,
that's a fact.
man.
Hey, dude, you've
That's a
done it again,
fact.
man. You've outdone the last 37 episodes.
Excellent.
I'm telling you, you've done it. So you can wind it up, and next week's going to be 39. So I'm not even going to ask what you're going to do with that one. I'll
Yeah,
find out when I turn up.
I'll think about it next Saturday. It's easier if it just comes to the because what I notice is things kind of happen during the week, which will remind me of the number. Like this week, a lot
Yeah.
happened to remind me of this, so it kind of was easy. And then once Farce kind of mentioned baseball, I was, oh yeah, I can work that in. I can easily work that
Good.
in.
Hey, good. Hey, Fast Value. Good on you for you've sparked another great show for
Yeah,
Bongversations
man.
38. So
38.
10 out,
So yeah,
12 out of 10.
so just hopefully this one doesn't get age restricted.
Demonetized. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't think we've said anything. We haven't mentioned anything nasty. You know, because
yeah,
that last episode did, and everyone out there, listen, it got age restricted and it got strangled because it's
right.
normally we'd be up in the high 400s to 500s,
Mm-hmm.
which is very good for a show of this level of conversation. I have to
Mm.
say that there's definitely not a lot of shows out there that are actually nailing all the stuff and putting it together. The mind of Christ, the
Right.
mind of a computer or PC, which is what most people are
Mm-hmm.
getting. The
Pitcher
PC
catcher,
mind,
pitcher catcher.
politically correct PC, and picture catcher.
Do you notice also
There's
within
a
the kind of like the street slang for knowing, biblically knowing, is being a catcher or a pitcher
true.
when you're dealing with a bunch of dudes.
Yep,
Uh, so
you're a
it's all
pitcher.
kind of like it's all kind of queer play too as well, which is of course going back to the men in tights. You know, there's
Yeah.
no so
Particularly
this is
American
it's all
football.
ridiculous, man.
This running around with tights on and a jock strap on uh, doesn't seem to be what I call particularly masculine, but they've made it masculine for the masses,
Yeah, that's yeah.
guaranteed.
And well, that's also kind of the reason to where spirits are brought in beer, especially beer and food, because if it was any other way, if it's just uh, people of sound mind watching, they'd quickly see kind of the symmetry to it, and the
Yep.
idea and how quickly and how easily it can be contrived as far as outcome. Because here's the thing: you don't have really 24/7 betting nowadays. You can even bet on your phone
Yep.
without the house ruling the result, meaning that the general audience can get a payout, but they're going to be getting pennies on the dollar. You know,
Yep.
you're never hitting that jack. It's with the 1984 idea, which where it's like the population was keep busy with the lottery, you know, and even
Yes.
some coming up with elaborate schemes and ways to get past, you know, to win, you know.
Going
So
on right now.
yeah,
Just I'll say this: going on right now. Have a
mm-hmm.
look around and see what you're hearing and
Right.
see what you're seeing. There's lotteries. There's a little carrot being dangled out in front of you, so you just like the donkey, that
Horse
ass.
betting, the Balaam, yeah, they are being talked to like a, you know, you're better than that, but you're allowing the animals to control your movement.
Animal Farm. That's what you're
Yeah.
on. A big
Mm-hmm.
giant one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Hey
So
Dave,
yeah,
what
I'm gonna send the
you
bot out.
send it about me. And hey guys, back next week with episode 39.
All
Thank you
right.
for listening to the Bongversations episode 38. Dave has knocked it out of the park just like the baseball
Yeah.
players did in the day, or still do. Babe
Yeah.
Ruth
Knocked it out of the
for
park.
Knocked out of the park.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Be blessed.
Be blessed. Hey.